DEFCON is an annual hacker conference, and in my world, conferences tend to be these sort of big sponsored events with elaborate advertisements everywhere. But DEFCON is very unique in that everybody who attends, including press, pays $300 cash to attend. There are no sponsors. It is a fiercely independent spirit on display there. And it had set off, when we arrived, a sort of paranoia in Las Vegas. You know, the word hacker has these dark connotations, and so people were going to elaborate lengths to try to protect themselves from hackers. Everything from cab drivers to the wait staff at a restaurant we ate at were saying that they were turning their phones off when they got in the vicinity of these people. When we got there, we were in fact made to feel pretty welcome, and it turns out that the people in attendance are not the loners, you know, working on behalf of the Russian government, at least none that we saw. People tend to, the tradition there is people coming in who are either employed by big companies helping them to imagine the worst case scenarios that hackers might perpetrate on them, or just independent spirits who do that kind of thing for intellectual curiosity or other motivations. We were there specifically to attend something called the Voting Village, which is something that's gone on for 3 years, and in this, its third year, they had assembled some of the most common voting machines in the country, both systems that are on the front end that you and I use to actually register our vote, and the back end, tabulators and so forth, that you would feed a paper ballot into or that oversee a system. What was so interesting was I assumed coming into it that the big manufacturers, companies like ES&S and Dominion, had provided these machines to the hackers to, you know, field test them. But no, it turns out there's an extremely hostile relationship there, and that ES&S and Dominion and other companies have basically said we don't want to participate, and really have been quite aggressive in saying we don't want to be part of this. So the organizers were reduced to finding these machines on eBay, which right there is pretty terrifying, because it turns out that anybody can buy some of the most common machines in use on eBay. What was really alarming was when you see these hackers, and these are people who've never seen these machines before, have had no practice on them for the most part, come in and engage them, they immediately get into the guts of them. Beyond that, we were seeing Dominion's image cast system. It's a line of tabulators that paper ballots are fed into. That had its guts all over the room. It was not clear to us whether this was the most recent version of the image cast hardware, but it's important to note that Georgia just spent over is about to spend over $100 million on a contract with Dominion to provide image cast hardware to the state in time for the for the next primaries and for the 2020 election. And yet here these kids were who had opened it up. They said, look, you can pop the front off of it, and here's a port you can get into right here. That's easy. You know, all kinds of stuff that you could certainly do within 6 minutes behind a curtain, much less if you had extra time, because any of these were connected to the web, as we discovered a couple of days before. So many of them are. So at the end of the event, Voting Village issues a report, and so we'll be expecting one from them, and they're very transparent about it. I mean, the spirit of this event was transparency, trying to get these vulnerabilities out into the world so that I guess the idea is that the companies will be forced to correct them in some ways. The front of each machine was a little post-it that showed off what had been found out by the various hackers. So at one point, you know, the admin password was just sitting there on there, because it turns out that the same admin password, it applies to multiple machines across the room, and those machines were created in the 2000s, which means that they were in fact created so you can't change that admin password. They're just locked for all time in that way. There does not seem to be any political momentum on some of the bills that are under consideration right now around trying to keep these machines off the internet, or trying to establish some sort of certifiable ballot, paper ballot system, or any of the other things that have been proposed. And so the combination of seeing the incredible vulnerabilities that we saw on display in real time at this event, and the lack of institutional action around the security of the vote, all of that made for an extremely alarming weekend.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.